Are we all ready? Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call Cumberland Fire District regular meeting to order. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance at a moment of silence.
Wait.
But
Layla Charette.
Moment of silence, please.
oh, absolutely. Would you like to announce it?
If we could also keep in mind 5-year-old Layla Charette, who passed away a couple weeks ago after a brief illness. Thank you.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Santoro, for reminding us about that. I appreciate it. All right. General announcements. Anyone on the board?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Scullin?
Just a quick, well, I got two announcements, but one quick one. I had a discussion with Senator Pearson a couple weeks ago. He is working on moving his legislation towards a town fire department, getting all the players together. So I think right now we're a holding pattern waiting on what develops with that, if everybody's on board or what direction we got to go in. But there is some movement. We'll keep you abreast as we...
Yes, I also spoke with Senator Pearson, and he informed me.
All right. The other issue is I'm going to just quickly jump back to the November 10th meeting of the former board. The records do indicate that both boards were sworn in only upon town certification. They were sworn in before both years, both terms, before the state certified. So just wanted to make the board aware at some point I'm going to ask this board to step up to the plate and defend the taxpayers and overturn what happened on that night. But I'm working on a little bit more information right now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Can I just add, so just so you know, that the bylaws subcommittee is working on bylaws, and that is one item that they're specifically addressing, is in the future when the board should be sworn in, so we don't have that issue ever again.
Well, I understand that's under discussion on bylaws, but
yeah, well, I'm
just affect what's happening.
Yeah. Okay.
And there will be a meeting of the personnel subcommittee tonight, and we'll have future meetings that can possibly be brought up at that committee as well, if you'd like. If I could also add something for the chief that I talked to you about, Cindy, the cancer thing. Should I discuss that now?
That's probably, I think I know what you mean. I think that's off agenda. You can talk about it separately, unless it's an announcement. Is it an announcement to the public?
Well, yeah, it's just... so I had the opportunity to attend a meeting about the cancer with firefighters. And I talked to Cindy and the chief about it. The chief and I discussed, Deputy Chief Feather and I are going to work together on researching how to prevent cancers in the future for our firefighters. So it's a general announcement. It's not going to cost you money. It's not a motion. It's just, more of working together with the firefighters and the chief, and Deputy Chief Feather and I are going to, try to get. I have some connections with the Blue Cross and the physical exams, the requirements do cost money. They're above and beyond a normal physical exam for you and I. But the firefighters do more than you and I do on a regular basis. So it may cost money down the road. And I want to pursue that before we go back to the committee for the recommendations. Okay? Chief, is that okay? Does that sound good? That's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Santoro. It's a very important topic to be researching. I know that firefighters are most at risk for developing cancer, and we owe it to our firefighters to help them make very good decisions about their health. All right, let us continue on with the meeting. Consent.
Motion to approve minutes. Motion to approve minutes of 1/21/17.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing no discussion. All in favor of approving the minutes from 1/21/17? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 6-0. Is there a motion on the table for...
Yep, motion for 1/24/17.
Wait a minute, you don't have those in front of you. Those were put on the agenda with the expectation that you would have them. I completed the minutes for your roundtable meeting on January 21. We have not received the minutes for January 24th yet, so those are not before you tonight. So I would we'll just pass that and do it next month.
Okay.
My mistake. Withdrawn. Tabled. Motion to table?
Yeah, you don't even need that for minutes, but...
The next one is the approval to rename Resolution FCR 2017-53-A to FC-R-2017-1-A. And it is for the resolution for the reappointment of Kelly Morris as General Counsel Solicitor.
Madam Chair, that's only because a mistake was made to number it 53 rather than your very first resolution of the year.
Correct.
So it's merely a change of the number.
Motion to approve.
Second. Third.
There has been a second.
Mr. Archibald.
There has been a second. All in favor of approving the rename?
Yep.
Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 6-0. Thank you. I'd like to ask Michelle Baker to do a presentation for us on the tax sale process, because we would like to be educated on that process. So, Michelle, if you could come to the microphone over here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Speak into the microphone, please.
My name is Attorney Michelle Baker, and I have had the privilege of working with the fire districts in the town of Cumberland since 2008 with regards to the tax sale process held by each district, both prior to the merger and after. I have at times been questioned by the finance directors and the tax collectors with regards to the process, and had suggested that if I could be of any assistance to inform the committee as to the general process and the overview of how that matter works, that I would be more than happy to do so. So I'm going to try to give you an overview of a somewhat convoluted statutory process right now, and am willing to answer any questions that you might have after. By the time that tax accounts get to my office with regards to the need for further collection, it's usually after the result of several attempts made by the tax collector to collect on those past due taxes. The variation in the attempts for collection prior to that time have been wide and considerably different. Most times they involve 2 or 3, maybe even more, attempts to notify taxpayers significantly after taxes are past due that there's an issue. Also trying to inform the taxpayers as much as possible of what the statutory allowances are for the district to collect those taxes in the event a tax sale is necessary.
Michelle, if I could just interrupt for a second. What methods are used to contact the people?
It's typically mailing.
Okay.
Mailing. Several notices typically go out. I have seen several of them myself, and they gradually provide more and more information for taxpayers to let them know exactly what could potentially happen in the event that a tax sale process is necessary.
Is it a certified mail?
At that point, no, sir.
Okay.
No, sir. This is coming directly from the district. In the past, it has been voluminous to the district with regards to postage costs and whatnot, but I can assure the committee that repeated efforts are constantly made prior to the point where it gets to my office when a tax sale process is then necessary. I have worked with your finance director and your tax collectors for years to come up with as many systems as possible to get taxpayers to the point where they realize the severity of what would happen in the event that a tax sale process is necessary and the additional costs involved. The statutory process for a tax sale is significant. It takes a period of no less than 120 days to conclude. When the delinquent accounts are forwarded, the first thing that has to happen is that a full title search has to be done on every property to assess what liens are in interest on the property and also identify the taxpayer, the owners, they might not be the same party, and identify all addresses and all possible information that we can do through due diligence to inform taxpayers of the process. The process then requires that we send notice by regular mail no less than 90 days prior to the actual sale date itself. Those notices go out to the owners of record. They go out to addresses of the taxpayer, which may be different. It may be a billing address. It may be a company. We also are required to send notice to corporations' registered agents, and all that is done after significant public records are reviewed and identified and updated. That 90-day notice, once it's sent out, typically and hopefully resolves the matter very quickly, and then the properties are removed from the sale and no further involvement is incurred. The next statutory requirement is at the 40-day notice, 40 days prior to the sale, at which point we are required by law to send notice out again to all parties in interest, all owners, also at this point by certified mail, which is a significant cost. Right now, certified mail is averaging about $6.55 per item. Due to the voluminous amount of mail that we need to send out with regards to the statutory requirements, to the address of the property, to the address of the billing, if it's different from the property, to the registered agents of the property. And, you know, we take a conservative approach regarding this because the attitude is that the notice needs to get to where it needs to get so people know what's going on. So we you know, do our best to dot every I and cross every T to make sure that that happens. That notice requires, of course, you know, the emailing now or the green cards to be returned to us so we have evidence of receipt. I can attest to the board that I get so many back unclaimed, so many back to vacant parcels that you can't deliver certified mail to, but it's a significant cost to the district for just the postage for that going out. So at this point now, we've had a title search done. 90 days prior, we've sent regular mail to everybody who's an owner of the property, to every address we can find. At the 40-day notice mark, now we're sending it again by certified mail. The statute then requires after that, at the 20-day mark, that we send notice to parties in interest. Now, it's not a... Yes?
Question. How much does a title cost for you to handle?
$75.
Okay, so that's important for the board to know as well. All these costs adding up.
Right, that's a direct cost that we incur for having all the titles done for each property. Thank you.
That was a good question.
The 20-day statutory requirement demands that we send notice to every mortgagee that's listed, so all the banks. We also have to send notice to anybody who has a prior tax title interest and life estate owners and several statutory requirements. That also has to go by certified mail, again, incurring that additional cost. What my office does is we send that notice out at the 40-day mark, hopefully to give these institutions the opportunity to research it so that things can be taken care of prior to the date of sale, because it's at the date of sale that the intense costs are incurred for a taxpayer, because at that point the district has no control over it anymore. We are now involved with third parties who have purchased it, paid off the taxes to the district, and paid all the costs involved in getting it to this point. I can inform the committee that the last sale that we held on February 7, 2017, I don't have the exact figure, but I believe that our original list was approximately just shy of 300. Yeah. And we had narrowed it down to the sale of 22 properties. So by the time we got to the actual date of sale, there were only 22 properties that were left that involved third parties then coming to the auction, paying the taxes off, paying the costs on top of it. At this point now, once a property is purchased by a third-party tax title owner at the tax sale, they have an ownership interest in the property, but it is not a full ownership interest in the property. It is a percentage, if you will, of what is owned. They, at that point, can do absolutely nothing with what they've purchased. They have to hold on to that interest, if you will, for a period of 1 year, for which every tax title property owner, mortgagee, party in interest has the ability to pay everything off in full. And that's what we refer to as redemptions. So the owner or any bank involved has the absolute right of redemption for that first 365-day period after a tax sale. They are processed through our office, and it involves recording deeds, recording discharges, processing paperwork and payments. That is when it gets very expensive, because the redemptions then include penalties. They can't include interest by statute to the tax title owner. If a tax title owner purchases, pays off, for example, $1,000 to purchase a tax title interest, for that 1 year after, they're entitled to 10% penalty on the return on their funds paid immediately. Also, after 6 months, they're entitled to 1% interest per month for every month that it's outstanding until redeemed. Only after that 365th day is the tax title owner then in a position to do what we call foreclose the rights of redemption. This is the whole process starting all over again, ladies and gentlemen. They have to bring it to Superior Court. They have to file a suit in Superior Court, send out notices by not just regular mail, but by certified mail, sometimes by constable. If no answers are made to the judge at that point in Superior Court, the tax title owner does have the ability to foreclose the rights of redemption and take ownership to the property. But it is a second process which, if you will, is even more statutorily involved with regards to notice to the owners, notice to the banks, notice to every party in interest, to allow them to, again, have the right to redeem. Once it gets to Superior Court, after that 1 year period expires, and I'm sorry, I know this is a very convoluted process, but once it gets to that point, I have found in my 18 years of experience that the Superior Court judges are very deferential to any party in interest. They're trying to do everything they can to allow people to redeem that tax title interest. It has to be of a severe error or something which the judge has no control over typically to allow that foreclosure to go through. However, once it goes to Superior Court, the tax title owner at that point has incurred more title fees, legal fees, and additional constable costs, certified mailing costs, title costs all over again. So it's at that point where these matters get extremely expensive for the taxpayer. But what I would like to, just educate the committee about is that for it to get to that point, you have gone through no less than 3 years of repeated notices, repeated attempts for collection. And if you forgive me, one thing that I did also forget to inform the committee is that at that 40-day notice where we are required to send out information to the taxpayers again by certified mail, we are also required to send copies of all those notices to the Rhode Island Housing and Mortgage Finance Corporation. This is a statute that was put in place several years ago because it puts RIMFAC in a position to buy those tax titles. And RIMFAC does that quite often. On this last list, when we were down to close to 30, they took 4. I have seen situations where it's much higher than that. And it usually depends on the circumstances involved in the title, whether or not Rhode Island Housing has an interest in the property, and also whether or not the taxpayer approaches Rhode Island Housing and is looking for assistance. But they do have that state-run program that is very helpful to many taxpayers, and what happens at that point is that Rhode Island Housing, although they do have the right to the same penalties and interest, they don't foreclose. So that 1 year period is significantly extended. The statute is still fairly new in the eyes of the law, so we haven't seen redemptions go through Rhode Island Housing. They're not in the business of wanting to own property, they're in the business of wanting to help taxpayers. So that's also another requirement through the whole tax sale process. On top of that, again, at that 40-day mark, we are also required to send copies of all notices to the Department of Elderly Affairs for any party that might be receiving an exemption due to age. So we identify those accounts, we hand-deliver those notices to the DEA, and they, again, also have the responsibility to approach the taxpayers and do what they can to assist. So, in a nutshell, that is the tax sale process. I would be more than happy to answer any questions about it or that you may have, fill in any blanks.
Like, why would anyone want to purchase a tax sale house?
I find for two reasons. One, it's a good investment. And I've held sales not just for the Cumberland Fire District, but for several other entities, municipal entities. There are a very savvy group of individuals out there that research their titles and will take their chance. If they end up with the ownership of the property, it pays off for them as an investment. If they don't, then they are receiving 12% interest annually on their investment plus a 10% penalty, which is better than most banks can offer. That's what I find.
Okay. I have no further questions.
How many houses actually go that far to be sold?
It's very typical that it gets very limited. Very, very typical. The last list that we got for last year was one of the largest because when all the districts merged, narrowing it down to 22 accounts was significant from close to 300. Prior to that, when I handled sales for separate districts, it would be common for me to receive a list of maybe 100 accounts, and we'd weed them down to 8, maybe 5. I've held sales where there are 6 or 4. So it's very uncommon to have a significant amount left at the sale. Some of these properties, too, are properties that have major title concerns, which results in the fact that the owners, it may not be a primary residence or anything significant of that nature. However, it's still on the tax rolls, and there are some accounts that we get where they don't sell at sale because the parties that come up to make the purchases do their homework. They recognize that the likelihood of the investment being redeemed is low, and what they could end up with the property and sell is insignificant, so they don't bother. On this last list that we held on February 7th, we had 3 properties that were originally passed on. One did not sell at all due to major title issues and unsaleability in the future, and the other 2, somebody approached us a second after the sale and said, well, if nobody wants them, I'll take them, because she was banking on a redemption.
So the one that's not sold, that's just abandoned property? Who takes over that property?
Not necessarily abandoned, sir. It stays on the tax rolls unpaid. And, you know, I have in the past with other districts encouraged the possibility of the district taking the interest at that point, because the district at that point does have the ability to do that. We could record the tax collector's deed into the name of the district, and then the district could be in the position to hold on to it for 1 year. Similar to Rhode Island Housing, though, the question becomes whether or not the district ultimately wants to foreclose the rights of redemption and end up as the owner of property in town. So it's something to consider. But again, if a property is not sold at sale, the possibility that it might benefit the district through ownership is most likely significantly low. And as an investment for the district, it might not make sense.
So what happens if someone like Rhode Island Housing or the district were to buy a property at tax sale and hold on to it, not redeem it, and then obviously they're still not paying taxes? Do they go back into the tax sale process for the following year?
They certainly can.
Okay. And then could someone other than Rhode Island Housing or the district buy the second tax title?
Yes, they can.
So you could have multiple tax title holders?
You can, and we do. We have several accounts where the titles reflect several tax titles on it. All those tax title owners must be notified as if they were an owner of the property, because a tax title interest is equivalent to an ownership interest. It's just not a complete ownership interest. It's one of the statutory requirements that we need to send additional notice.
One more question. So when, again, anyone, if they don't redeem their, foreclose the right of redemption, are they notified as like a party in interest where they can pay before the tax sale the following year? So they become like an owner for purposes of paying it before it goes to tax sale?
That's correct.
Okay.
Because their ownership interest is significantly affected if the tax title purchaser for the subsequent sale ends up foreclosing the rights of redemption. They would have to be noticed during the original proceedings for the tax sale and also the Superior Court proceedings for the foreclosure. Tax title owners often will pay the intervening taxes that occur prior to the point that you'll incur the foreclosure proceedings. I find that there are many attorneys that attend these tax sales because they can then foreclose the rights of redemption at a different cost, if you will. The cost to the taxpayer, however, is still significant. It is not uncommon, once it gets to the foreclosure position in Superior Court, to have a redemption figure at that point involve over $2,500 in attorney's fees, $1,000 in title fees, certified mailing fees. So an initial bill that starts out at one level will balloon, but it balloons at the tax sale itself due to the third-party intervention and the statutory allowances, and then it balloons at the foreclosure. It's prior to that point that the district has done, in my experience, everything it can possibly do to keep those costs down for the taxpayer. The outside costs that we incur through this process involve title, certified mail, noticing, postage, delivery fees, and then the legal fees on top of that. And we have tried our best to negotiate what we can do to keep it as low as possible.
Any further questions? Thank you very much, Michelle. I appreciate your education.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, Kelly, do you want to explain this letter from the Attorney General finding no violation of access to public records?
So first of all, I'd like to say, although this is dated September 23rd, I just came across it the day we met for the bylaw subcommittee meeting, which I believe was last week. I was actually researching opinions for a totally different reason, and you essentially have to go in chronological order, reverse chronological order. So when I was doing that, I came across this opinion. I want you to know I had not received it. And the Attorney General's office has acknowledged in the past that they've sent things to an incorrect email address for me. So just having said that, you may or may not know that former Commissioner Cucciani had filed a complaint against essentially the Finance Department for failing to provide certain documents to him. This involved bills and statements for legal services, gross salary of firefighters, and overtime for firefighters as well. What happened was, this was a time when I believe it was your first collection period, right, Madam Finance Director? It was essentially your first quarterly or your first collection period.
It was our first year.
First year, collecting taxes where there were a lot of questions. You and I discussed this at that time. You know, the letter kind of speaks for itself because she did add a lot of what I said in response to this. But essentially, there was a high volume of phone calls and lines out the door, and essentially what we said is, yes, of course you can have this, but you can't have it right this very minute, and we'll get it to you as soon as possible. So there's an ability for any agency to send a letter in response saying, we can't get this to you in 10 days, but we'll get this to you within 30, and frankly, we got this to him well before the 30-day period. It was just not received under his time frame. So essentially, again, we don't need to talk about this all night, but the Attorney General has found that there was no violation, that the reasons for not giving the information to Mr. Cucciani immediately or even within 10 days was appropriate. And again, this, I think, may have been reported in the Valley Breeze, so we did want to bring it to your attention that the staff was correct in responding appropriately, and that, I just want everyone from the public to know that we do our absolute best to get information out to people, anybody, as quickly as possible, but sometimes it just doesn't happen that very minute. So that's really all I have to say about it. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I have no questions.
Madam Chair, just a statement on this. My problem with this whole thing is, not even what the Attorney General's office had to rule on it, is that a board member had to file a request for information. That was the most absurd thing I've ever heard of. And under the former regime of this board, that's the way it operated. That's why this got to this, because you just couldn't ask for stuff. You had to put it in a request for public information. Board members shouldn't be required to do that. This was a disgrace.
I would like to respond to that.
Please.
You're right. Board members should not have to put anything in writing, and that was not the intent or what happened in this particular case. In this particular case, and in other cases, Mr. Cucciani would go to the staff's door and demand first records immediately, and then he would demand access to the building to go through files himself. A lot of this information is protected by HIPAA, by just regular confidentiality. It has social security numbers, things like that. Our staff cannot legally provide that type of information to anyone, including board members. So the only reason why we asked him to do it under the Access to Public Records Act is because of the way he proceeded. There have been other instances, many instances that I am aware of, where he was accommodated immediately, within a couple of days, and without the demand of filing an Access to Public Records request. We had to have him do that. But be assured that he was provided with many documents, many times, without the need to do this. It was just the way we had to handle this particular request, and frankly, another request that I expect to be decided probably this fall. The way these are being responded to, they take about 9 months to a year because the Attorney General's office is so busy. We will be getting another response. But other than those two, again, Mr. Cucciani was provided with information either immediately when they could do it or within a couple of days. So it's not that we required a board member to formally request under this act. It was the circumstances of the way he went about it. And we had to protect our staff and our firefighters and your board. That's why we did it that way. So,
and just a comment on that, it would be my expectation that if any of the board members needed information, they would request it, but I think they would honor the fact that if it was right during a busy time, that they would expect to have, give a couple of days' notice before they get that information. I wouldn't expect that you would need to file a request for information. I just would expect that everybody would just honor the work that the office is doing and just make an appropriate request for considering the work that they're doing at that time. Okay? Any questions or any other comments? Moving forward.
So did Mr. Cucciani get all the stuff he wanted?
He did.
And there is another pending complaint, but he also got that information as well.
Okay.
Just so you know. And again, I don't want to belabor this, but
No,
this staff is fabulous, and they do everything they can to get information to people as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, let's move on to new business. We have our financial report for the month of January. Diane, would you like to give us an overview?
Sure. We are, is this on?
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
We had a better month because our third quarter taxes were due January 15th. So as you can see, we collected over $600,000 for our third quarter, which was nice. We're getting a little bit of interest with that too, with some late payments, so that's helping. We did have a tax sale in February, and as Michelle said, we were down to 22 properties, so that had actually generated a little bit of extra income for February as well. We're at about 75% of our expenses right now, so we're pretty much right on track for that. And as far as our income, we've collected closer to, I think it's 85 or 88% of our budgeted revenue. So we're just keeping a close eye on everything, day to day.
Very good.
Does anybody have any questions about the reports?
Going through the report line by line, which is excellent, as usual, I noticed there's some old accounts in the old districts. Do you want to get rid of those, just housekeeping?
I do, except that we are still working with the auditors and working with adjusting entries, and some of those accounts that we don't use anymore may have an adjusting entry. So we're waiting until the final audit report, which I'm expecting any day, and the adjusting entries, and once that's finished, we will be able to clean these, but we haven't touched it for that reason.
Any other questions?
Motion to accept?
There's a motion on the table. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor of accepting this report? Say aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0. Thank you very much. Chief, it's your turn.
Well, as you had heard about my attempt to get the building on Jones Street, we were not able to get that building. There was numerous issues that the building and the contractor were afraid of repurposing that building and having liability. So that has been moved aside and destroyed and hauled away. We had a fairly busy month with 384 responses for the month of January, and it's been busy on the administrative side with the bylaw subcommittees and the building capital expense subcommittees. I don't want to take too much from the chairman of the capital expense committee, but we did meet with National Grid on their building and have an overview of what is offered there. And from our roundtable discussion in January, Mr. Aronian was in the audience, and he is an architect, and we have a meeting scheduled with him for March 8th to explore further options for our building situations. So I will withhold any comment on that till we have a better handle on the whole process for a building site and size. We have through Senator Pearson, reopen talks with the state to obtain the land that surrounds Station 2 so that we would have a bigger footprint for our use. So, the staff was not exempt from the multitude of illnesses that started in December and have carried right through January and February. So you'll see an increase in the overtime. It's just between picking the people up that were ill, contracting it from families, and most everybody has a child in school. It's just been a repetitive process for me. The 3 new men have been assigned, and they've been working out very well. They've all experienced some degrees of fire since they've been assigned to their apparatus, and they've all performed flawlessly. So that's a good start for them.
That's very good. Good to know. Does anyone have any questions?
Motion to accept.
Motion to accept is on the table.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. All in favor of accepting the chief's report for January, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 6-0. All right, the next 2 items on the list are resolutions. First resolution are 2017-2, authorizing the tax collector to abate taxes in the amount of $14,595.97 and to addend taxes in the amount of $14,595.97, whereas the tax collector has determined that certain property taxes must be abated and others addended, both in the amount of $14,595.97 as shown in the reports attached. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Cumberland Fire District as follows. The tax collector is authorized to abate and addend as shown in the attached reports. Any discussion?
Motion to accept.
Motion to accept by Commissioner Santoro. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. All in favor? On accepting this, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent. Passes 6-0. Engine 3 repairs. This is Fire Committee R-2017-3. I'm sorry, Engine 1. It's the third resolution.
Exactly what you did.
I have a cold.
Yeah.
I'm not clear. The resolution authorizing the finance director to pay Minuteman trucks in the amount not to exceed $5,920.99, whereas Minuteman truck was contracted to make repairs to Engine 1, whereas all repairs have been made with the approval of the chief. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Cumberland Fire District as follows. The finance director is authorized to pay Minuteman trucks in an amount not to exceed $5,920.99. Is there questions? Is there a motion to accept?
Accept. Motion to accept.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Second. All in favor to accept this resolution?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 6-0. Okay, the final item on our agenda is a request from Fayez and Susan Albatal to remove certain fees from tax invoice. So if you would kindly come to the podium, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Ladies and gentlemen. My name is Faiz Albatal. It's my wife, Sue Albatal. We live on 131 Abbott Run Valley Road. We are here to discuss the $300 fine that was added to our fire tax bill without us knowing anything about it. To bring things back into history, the end of 2015, beginning of 2016, my wife went down to the fire house and she paid all the dues, and she was under the impression she's walking away with a clean bill with nothing owed and everything. It was mentioned to her verbally there might be some residual $100. That we didn't think anything of it. Things went dormant. I know there was discussion about mailings and all that. We did not see anything of that. until we received a certified letter from the office of Michelle Baker, that our house is going into a tax sale, as you've been talking about all night long. I did go down again, and I paid 2016 in the whole entirety, even though it wasn't all due. To my surprise, that part of the payment went down to the initial $100 and the $300. And we don't think this is, we were not given ample warnings about it. We did not know anything about it. Had we known anything about it, we would not have come to this point. And that we are right now asking to remove the $300 from our bill.
So, I need to gather a little bit more information about this, because this is pretty interesting. It's my understanding that prior to the merger, you had owed 2013, 2014 taxes, and you also, and then after our merger, owed 2015 taxes, correct?
That's correct.
So you had failed to pay taxes for years 2013, 2014, and 2015.
I don't think the whole, all 3 years, but I think it was partial in 1 year and the 2 years. And when we were alerted to it, we paid the whole thing in one shot.
Okay.
It was neglected, there's no question about it.
So in 2015, because it was going into the hands of the tax sale, and I imagine that's how you found out you owed the taxes? That
No,
it was going to a tax sale?
Yes, that's...
Well, in 2015, we knew we owed the taxes, and we went down and we paid it in the amount $2362.77. That covered until the end of 2015. And then we had 2016 all the way around. I guess at that point we had left $100 that we didn't know why was it for. The tax bill asked for $2362.77, and that's what we paid. We walked away under the impression we owe zero balance. Apparently we did not. And the $100 generated $300 attorney fee because of that, which we didn't know anything about it till the end of 2016, until we were notified by a certified mail from Michelle Baker's office. And this is how we were alerted. Actually, we were coming back from a funeral and find out that there's a slip in the mail and I went to find out, and I tried to contact the office of the attorney. Obviously, there's no answers there, and we went down to the tax collector, and we paid the whole thing again. It was $999 and some change. Also, to our surprise, that part of this payment didn't all go to taxes. Part of it was almost $400 went to cover some of the legal fees, and the house was still on tax sale. That we don't understand why, to be honest with you.
Do you have your receipts that are signed by the...
Absolutely.
And any of them say paid in full?
Absolutely.
This one, yes, we have that one, and this is the letter, and those are the other ones.
Would you like to see them?
Can I?
You can pass them down.
Yeah, you can pass them down.
Can I come?
So based on what we just learned from Ms. Baker, the reason you had owed 2013, 2014, and 2015 taxes, and by December 9th, it was in the hands of the attorney for the tax sale.
December 9th of what year? I'm sorry.
In 2015.
I don't know.
I don't think we were told about that. We were not even notified.
Well, when you went down to pay your taxes.
Yes, yeah.
So it was already in the hands of the lawyer. So there was a legal fee and an administrative fee for trying to contact you for the past 3 years. Well, actually for the past year, because prior to 2015, you were dealing with your own personal district.
North Cumberland.
But in terms of the administrative fee for trying to reach out to you for the 2015 taxes, so that was the $100 bill that I believe you agreed. You were contacted by the office, and you were informed that the fee was going to be $100, and you acknowledged that you received the phone call saying that in December.
I don't
Honestly,
believe we
I
received
don't-
any phone calls in
I
that
don't remember.
regard,
I
nor
remember-
we received any letters in that regard.
I remember contacting, I went down to actually make the payment, and I spoke with, I'm not exactly sure who the person was that I had spoken with, and I think it was like more of a gentleman's handshake. I was kind of hoping that the $100 would be taken off of the bill, so I didn't expect it. So it wasn't placed on the bill on the 8th of December when I made the payment. So I did not know that it was enacted again for the following year, 2016. Yes, which is,
So we come to 2016, and then you received, the office sent out late notices
So
in March of 2016.
We did not see that one.
Yeah, so we did not,
Bills.
on that one.
They sent out bills.
Yes, but, what we did receive, and, I respectfully disagree with Ms. Baker, because she said that they send numerous amounts of mail or letters concerning that. The one that brought us to the attention and bringing us here was the fact that we got the certified letter. And that certified letter was time-stamped in the post office on December 28th, which is not 40 days. Like she said, she sends out the letters so that we receive them 40 days prior to the tax sale date, which was February 7th. So there's some discrepancy there. So by the time we were notified, we picked up the letter. It was actually my uncle's funeral. We came home from my uncle's funeral, found the attachment to the certification letter in the mailbox, and then picked up the letter that day. The letter is dated for December 20th. The envelope is stamped for December 28th. By the time we received it in our mailbox, I'm not exactly sure what that was, but by the time we found it in our mailbox was on January 17th. So the amount of days that we were able to react was very limited for us. And if we received another letter prior to this, and it wasn't in the letter, a town Cumberland envelope from the town of Cumberland, I would not have seen the letter, quite honestly, because we get a lot of mail, and maybe it's neglect on me, but I did not see that letter.
So you never received your 2016 tax bill?
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
I don't believe so.
Or the November notice?
We did not receive
Or the August notice?
Nope.
No.
That seems unlikely.
Well,
Not unless they...
we received every other letter from the town and water bills and every other bill.
everything.
Nothing
We're
get,
up to pay,
get
yeah, we're
lost, Why this one in particular was missed, we haven't seen it.
What surprises me is that you have to pay taxes, and you know when they're due, and you didn't anyways.
Well,
again,
nobody's going to go voluntarily say how much do I owe you for taxes until you see a letter.
No, we're not, no.
I have.
Well,
I have.
I wish everybody's like you, Madam.
Because I was concerned, I didn't want to get a late fee.
You are right. We are concerned, and unfortunately, this happened. And I think when I had paid the taxes, I didn't realize the time had gone by so fast because I was let go from CVS. We had a lot of issues with me not working, and it just escalated, and I didn't think of it. I know that we were paying our car taxes, our property taxes through escrow, so that was being paid, and then the water bill, and it just slipped my mind that we had to pay the fire tax, which is terrible because, after all the problems
It's costly, isn't it? When you don't pay your taxes, it costs money.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we were, again, it was a little bit of a hardship for us.
And again, the fact is that if we have gotten a letter...
A certified letter sooner.
Certified and uncertified, that we owe the taxes, we would take care of it.
Yeah.
We probably, even if we couldn't afford it, we probably made partial payment and all that.
And I actually
but things went on from the end of 2015 or beginning of 2016 till the end of 2016 until we received the certified letter from Michelle Baker. That's, in between, there's nothing.
Yeah.
as
Madam,
far as communication.
And I had called the mayor's office and I asked him, he said, the fire taxes are totally separate from the property taxes. And I said, if we had something that we could pay, like with the property taxes, we put it in escrow and it automatically gets paid. If there was something that would help us.
You can do that. You have that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You do have that?
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't aware, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
My taxes are paid through my mortgage company.
Yeah.
Even
Your
the fire tax?
taxes? Really?
Do you elect to do that, or?
No, I actually called Diane before I got my tax bill to make sure that was happening, so that I wouldn't incur fees.
Well, that's something to look into then.
Madam Chairperson?
Yes.
If I could just make a point, they've had 13 years of paying North Cumberland Fire Department on time. So I'm not sure if there was some confusion with the changing,
They did not pay 13 or 14 taxes.
Or 15.
those years.
Or
But I'm saying
15.
2002 to 2013.
13.
We've been-
I'm on time, perfectly paid for the old North Cumberland Fire Department.
Right.
But we switched over
Yes. So the question is...
after the tax bills went out in 2014.
I understand.
So they did not pay 2013, 2014, 2015, and then again in 2016.
Okay. I was just
I
trying
guess
to...
what the councilman is trying to say, and I'm not, translating what he's saying, but, we do pay the taxes on time when we know about it. We've been in the house for 19 years now. From year 1 till year 15, we have no problem. All of a sudden, this problem arises.
You didn't pay 2013, and you didn't pay 2014 taxes.
I understand that, but it was paid, it's not like...
Eventually, you paid it after you were going to
we didn't
after
even-
you got threatened by a tax sale.
The other thing I wanted to say is, I believe that Ms. Baker had mentioned that they contact the agents when this occurs. But we have our mortgage with Pawtucket Credit Union, and they never contacted us either, which is very strange. Nobody let us know that this was happening. It was all happening under, I don't know, without us knowing. And my concern is, why wouldn't our mortgage company, our agent, contact us and say, this is what the town of Cumberland is telling us?
I mean, if I get something independent saying that there's a title search on your house, maybe that will turn the light on and say, something going on, let me go see what... Nothing.
But
None.
I don't know if she neglected to contact them or they neglected to contact us, which is very strange.
But again, you have to pay your taxes.
Right, absolutely.
And-
We're not trying to get away from paying taxes.
Right, and the cost that you incurred, the $100 turning into $300 was essentially lawyers' fees and administrative fees.
Title fees.
And title fees. The cost it incurred.
What we were saying is, if we knew about the taxes through the letters that everybody's talking about, we would not have let it come to this point.
Yeah.
To incur the $300 lawyer's fees.
I
can live with the penalties, I can live with the interest and all that, that's fine. But, to add on $300, and then voluntarily I went down and I paid 2016 in the whole entirety, it's not even due. And
Excuse me, can I comment on that?
Can I finish?
When the first quarter is delinquent, the entire bill becomes due.
How do we know if it's delinquent or not if we don't receive anything from you?
Failure to receive the bill is not an excuse not to
Well,
pay
I'm
the
sorry,
bill. That's part of the law.
Failure to receive that doesn't make me know that I am delinquent.
Madam Chairperson, if I could just make a point, clarification. He did pay 13 with, check number, whatever, 3786. He did pay the penalties of those years. He paid 15... Interest, whatever.
Not penalties.
I'm sorry, interest. He paid 15 taxes as well on 12/9, the check for 218.
It's the same.
No,
Yeah, we have it right here. On December 9, 2015,
Yep.
he paid everything
Yep.
for 2013, 2014, and 2015.
so right here I
There
have...
was an attorney's fee of $330 associated with that amount from those years. And
Not from those
the
years.
district, yes, there was.
No.
And the district reduced that legal fee to $100 for them in 2015. And then it starts all over again where they don't pay the 2016 taxes.
So 2013, You're saying was included in 15s? Because
Yeah.
on this paycheck, look at this form here. It's a different check number.
Right, but he said he made a partial payment in 2013.
I guess the point here is intent. I'm not a judge. I would defer to the solicitor. You're the judge.
Well, you guys have to decide, but I would say a couple things, and then I would ask Diane a couple of questions. One is, I've been in this situation before with car taxes where I moved from a city, had no idea, never got a bill, and then 7 years later I go to register a car in a different community, and I can't register it, and I have to go back and I have to pay the taxes that I never got the bill for, I have to pay the interest, I have to pay the penalties. It seems to me, by looking at this timeline, and tell me if it's wrong, but that in 2013, 2014, North Cumberland probably didn't do a tax sale. Did they do a tax sale?
They didn't.
So your taxes just kept accumulating. You didn't have to pay them, money in the bank. You were getting the interest on this money. And then at some point in December, late December, you, Mrs. Albertal, went to see either the finance director or the tax collector, and you were told that $330 in legal fees were added to your account of that $2,000. Rather than assessing you that $330, they reduced that for you that year to $100.
Right, but my house did not go on tax sale. That was supposed to be the cost of tax sale, but because it didn't make tax sale, I wasn't going to get charged.
Well, wait a minute.
I understood it.
But tax sale, remember, because I think you were here when Ms. Baker was explaining the process. There's a cost to the district when we start this process. First, she has to go and get a title done, pay someone else, which we have to pay to her, $75.
Yep.
Then there's certified mail costs, which I don't know how many certified mails went to you.
Just one. Just
Okay,
one that
$10, whatever it was. And then her attorney's fees. She's charging us, I don't know how that works, but she's charging us some number of fees. So they reduced that $330 of cost to this district on your behalf to $100 for 3 years of non-payment. I think that was very nice of them to do. I don't think they had to do that. Now you're on notice that you haven't paid your taxes for 3 years, and you don't pay them in 2016 either.
Well,
No,
I'm
we
sorry,
paid
man. We paid in 2015, we cleared everything.
$2,362.77.
Right, you paid 2013, 2014, and 2015
And that was at the
taxes.
end of 2015.
That was the end
Yeah,
of
I can't hear you. I just can't, because can you repeat
That was at the
that?
end of 2015.
Correct.
So
now you're on notice, and you receive a bill, or we send out bills in
why we are on
2006.
notice if we paid everything by the end of 2015 to cover until the end of 2015, why are we on
Well,
notice?
every year-
Number one. Number two, why don't we have the attorney charges on the 2015 tax bill?
Can I
Well,
respond to that?
yeah, go ahead, yep.
When you came in to pay, we had just sent the list over. Because there were hundreds of names on that list, we were still adding the fees. We explained to your wife that we weren't sure what we could probably get the fees reduced, and we would call and let you know. We have that in our notes. We have your phone number in our notes, and we called and told you it would be $100, and I think you acknowledged that. And that never got paid. The $100 never got paid. We sent late notices in March. We sent out bills in 2016, which would have listed the past due. And then we sent 2,000 late notices in October, I believe. And then we began tax sale proceedings again.
Now, again,
If-
go ahead, I'm sorry, Diane. I
If
thought
there
you were
was a
finished.
balance from the previous year and the 2016 taxes were not paid, the first quarter was missed, the second quarter was missed, it went to tax sale again.
So I want to say one thing. This is only $300 we're talking about. But as the legal representative here of this board, you had $55,000 in legal fees that were charged to about 200 taxpayers last year. $55,000. If you were to grant this relief to this couple, who's to say that the next guy's not going to walk in and say, well, you gave them $300, give me $300 too? And by the way, maybe we should return all $55,000 to every taxpayer. I think you're creating a very bad precedent. If you start, I mean, everyone is on notice. I pay taxes. Everybody here pays taxes. We all know that taxes are come out in the spring of every year in Cumberland. You've been living here for how long, Paul? 2002. Since 2002. So you know, that's what I mean by you're on notice. You're on notice that a tax bill comes out for a fire district in the spring of every year. I feel bad. I mean, there's times that I haven't gotten mail. I just told you, I've been, I don't want to say a victim, but I've been a subject of not paying a bill, not because it wasn't intentional, but nobody gave me any relief. And my point is, if we do this for this taxpayer, it's possible that you could have a line out the door, you know, give me relief too. I mean, this is kind of your notice to everybody about how this board is going to treat late fees. And just let me be clear that you've paid this time, not the last time where there was a $330 charge. This is a second time where there's $75 that this district paid to Michelle for a title search, paid for certified mail, and paid whatever her fee is. You've paid that.
Can I ask Diane a question?
Yep.
Yes.
So Diane, you mitigated it down to $100 in the past?
I'm sorry?
You lowered the amount from 300 to 100 in the past?
We did.
Okay.
In
How often?
2015. Because the tax sale process had just begun.
Sure.
We had not incurred all those extra fees.
Mm-hmm.
By the time that they came in January, we had already incurred all the fees.
Okay.
And paid
So
them.
what is our basic, what is the lowest amount of fee right now we are healed? I mean, we've incurred 200? Can we just say?
Would
meet
it be
'em?
incur?
Yeah.
It's $300 at least.
Oh, okay. Have you, in the past, lowered these kind of fees for
Only
people?
in the very beginning. We will lower it to $100 for maybe the first
At the
month.
very beginning of the...
Yeah, I understand. But, so this far along, you have not had any occurrences in the past that you've lowered it from $300?
No, we can't do that.
I understand.
If we're going to incur the fee, then that
We've
means
already paid
the
the...
district is going to incur.
We're in the hole. We lost.
If we were given the opportunity throughout the year, like you're saying, in March and this and that, to know there's a tax bill that's due on our behalf, we would have taken care of it a long time ago, wouldn't have gotten to this point. But we didn't. Whether you want to believe it or not, I don't know what to tell you, but we did not see anything from the fire tax until the end of the year that we saw Michelle Baker's certified mail. That's the only thing that triggered the whole thing.
Yes.
Well, I don't know why you're not getting your mail, because I know the
I don't
bills
know
go out.
either. I'm getting every other mail under the sun that I want and don't want.
But again, I go back to the fact that you know you have
Yeah.
a tax to pay every
You know,
July 1st. You should know that.
Quite honestly, yes, we do know
Yeah.
that. I wanted to let you know, though, Diane was very kind. I remember the day I went there because I just lost my job. Diane was very kind, and she said, when we talked, she said, I remember the conversation now, Diane, I'm sorry. Pay it, I said, $100, I still have to wait to see if I can collect whatever it was. She said, pay it when you can. So my mistake, I waited on it because we were going through a little bit of hard time. I'm lucky now I have a job. We're all set. But I just wanted to let you know that's what happened. And quite honestly, again, we're not circumventing anything. We didn't neglect on purpose. That was not something that we intended on doing. And if the town, I know we've paid interest on this past year as well. If the town would so kindly just allow us a couple $100s. I'm not, unfortunately, not making the money I used to make, but It is what it is with the town. I agree with you that you can't do this for everybody. If we had gotten the letter as soon as we did the first year, maybe we would have been able to pay before it went into this tax sale thing and saved ourselves at least the $200. You know, so whatever you can do, I mean, it would be greatly appreciated.
Madam
And
Chair.
again, sorry, Jim, we did not mean to neglect the payment.
Commissioner Scullin.
I just want a little clarification here of really what went on. It's been mentioned that the 2016 taxes did not cause this tax sale. What caused this tax sale was that $100 fee from the year before. So for about $113 with interest, triggered the tax sale. The 2016 taxes had nothing to do with it. And I think that's a very low number of trigger. And I think it should be a full year in arrears before it triggers a tax sale, not a $100 fee, because it's just, the trigger this over $100.
Excuse me.
In Valley Falls, we never allowed that to happen.
Can I
It had to be a full year in arrears. And I think the board should be making that decision.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Jim? In essence, the 2016 did come into play because 2 quarters had been missed. And when the first quarter is missed, the entire bill becomes due. We will not enforce that if people do come in and pay what they owe, but nothing had been paid and there was a balance from the previous year. That was what we did with that tax sale.
I think Jim's point's well taken. So what happens is, the lawyer fee comes off first. Then you go to the principal. And at the end of the day, the principal could be $1 or $113 or $5,000. For $113 to put this people who've paid taxes on time for 15 years to tax sale, it sounds a little bit, I agree with Jim. It's a little outrageous. I mean, I know it's a precedent. We don't want to start precedent of $55,000 of not paying. We know we have fire taxes. We know when they come. I have to admit, like Ms. Morris said, I get my car tax, and it says end of the quarter or the whole year. I went downstairs to pay it in person one day when I ran, and I had learned I had owed from 2008, 7, and 6, and 5 a car that I didn't even know I had 10 years ago. So I had taxes that were like sitting there waiting, accruing interest. I paid it all at once. So, the question comes again, for me, they didn't intentionally try to go around the system.
No,
it was a mistake.
Right.
Mistakes happen. And, I feel for her. I mean, she spent the night, 3 hours, sitting here telling us a story. Just pay $100 and call it even.
Well, I just want to be clear. I think Diane clarified the 2016 taxes, that they were essentially part of this tax sale round, because...
I beg to differ. She said they played a role, but if that $100 wasn't out there, that wouldn't have played a role.
Well, I don't know. Tell me. I don't know.
That's correct.
Okay.
But they would be in this tax sale right now that we just sent.
So if somebody is late 2 quarters, forget what's prior to that.
And they
You
have
go
a
to 2.
balance from the previous year.
But you
I'm
had
sorry,
told Diane, in all
if I can
honesty,
finish.
you did
If
tell
somebody
me.
is late,
All right, stop.
if somebody's 2 quarters late, it goes to tax sale.
Chair asked you to stop.
Stop. This is, now we're getting into anger situation, and this is unnecessary. Pleasure of the board.
I make a motion that we lower the amount to $100 and accept that as payment in full.
Second.
From 400? Is that what it, I don't know what the...
300?
Whatever it was to 100. I don't care what it was.
Okay.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, we go to a vote. All in favor of lowering it to 100, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Dana, what was the other one?
Aye.
Aye, so 3 to...
3 to 3.
So it will not be lowered.
It will not be lowered.
Can we rediscuss? Can I make a new motion? $200? I mean, we can do this all night. They want to pay the bill off. They want to have a clean slate. This is what we do in these town boards. This isn't, Superior Court. Diane, can you suggest an amount that you would be happy with that we can make this go away, please?
I can make another comment, is I have done a lot of research on this, and I put it out to the Rhode Island tax collectors. How do you handle this? This type of situation, many other situations similar to this. And what I got for response was we never, ever abate the fees. That's what I heard from everybody, because it costs money to the district to do that.
So what's the amount right now? What is the amount they owe right now?
It's $300,
$300.
which is what we paid.
All right, well,
And all the other taxpayers are going to pay that $300. That every other, including everyone sitting here. I mean,
I got it. I pay mine, I understand.
I just had one question and nobody answered it. So if you are delinquent 2 quarters in 2016, that would put you in tax sale? Is that what the bylaws are?
No.
Only if you want money from the last.
Only if you owe money from the following year, the previous year.
Okay, but there was no tax sale in the prior year. It was never communicated to us one way or the other.
Do you want to respond to that? There's no law that specifically says when you can have a tax sale. Once taxes are delinquent, they can be delinquent a week. We can do this. As a courtesy, we
But
wait
you don't.
longer.
And have you done that?
No.
No.
Okay.
No. But
So we are, I guess, the pioneer in this town, right?
Can I just make a comment, please? Diane, in all honesty, you had mentioned to me that don't worry about it, take your time. So I took my time, and I'm sorry, but I did not know that it would cause me to go into a tax sale. And if you remember that conversation, I'm sure you do. That's the only reason. I'm really sorry, but that's why I let it go just for the $100 until I got back on my feet and I was able to pay, because we had a lot of bills that we're trying to, go through and pay.
I still don't know how much do I owe for 2016 with all that added on and
But you
fees and all that. I still don't know how much do I owe.
You paid your 2016.
I thought I paid everything,
Yeah.
but I
You
was
did.
looking at the breakdown. They took the $400 out of it, satisfied some other parts, not tax.
Because of the year before, right.
can we agree?
No, not
can we-
before the $300 will only happened in 2016. We didn't know nothing about it before.
Diane, what is the balance?
the balance is $300.
How about a payment plan? $75.
Be happy to do a payment plan.
How about $75 every 3 months?
So,
No.
I appreciate your help. You know what? I'll be down there tomorrow, pay the $300. I'm sorry about taking your time.
I
And wasting my
apologize.
time as well. Thank you.
Public comment?
I have some public comment.
Do we have any public comment?
I do. I had the misfortune of being witness to the Cumberland's bravest firefighters at a 4-alarm fire in Lincoln recently. The chief was there with his, I think two trucks responded. It was a corner of School and Main Street in Albion. The building burned all night long, and I had the opportunity to witness our very well-trained firefighters from Cumberland working in the worst conditions possible on a structure that almost collapsed on them many times. Chief, you can elaborate on this. You were there. And our firefighters performed exemplary. There were no injuries. The fire was put out safely. A terrible loss to Albion. But I will say that, seeing the men from Cumberland working as hard as they did for as long as they did is a credit to the chief and to the training that the firefighters do every week. And trying to make sure the chief is recognized for that, as well as the men at the scene all night. Chief, you can comment if you like.
So like Bill Belichick says, they did their job, huh?
Yes, they did, over and over again. It was fine up until they announced that we were 4.5 hours into it. Then at that point, the coldness set in.
Yeah.
And it was a difficult building. I know the chairwoman has said, quite a few times about detectors. The building had a local, the whole fire was filmed by the surveillance system. So it showed a person going into the bathroom with a cigarette and coming out without a cigarette, and then the bar being cleared and closed up for the night, and 30 minutes later there's smoke coming out. And it just had a local alarm system, and nobody called the fire department. So after the detector burnt off the ceiling, the alarm stopped. The neighbors thought everything was fine until their homes started filling up with smoke. By then, it had a severe head start on us. And there was a lot of snow, there was a lot of cold, and there were a lot of different tactics tried, but the building had been rehabbed so many times, there was too many air spaces for the fire to beat us. So, unfortunately, it's had to be taken down. But, I understand it is insured, and I understand there are plans to rebuild. So.
Well, congratulations, and please extend our thanks to everyone who was participating in that fire from us, and what a good job they did. And we always have to remember that you have to have working smoke alarms, and when you are smoking, you smoke outside and you put it out all the way, and not in mulch.
I think was it Cambridge that just put forth legislation? You can't smoke outside somewhere?
In a construction zone.
In a construction zone, because of all the fires.
Because that fire, the huge fire that happened in Cambridge right before this one, was careless disposal, and it was one of the construction workers. And
Massachusetts also has a very good rule that I'm still exploring, that you cannot have mulch within 18 inches of your building. You can have a cement apron or you can have stone, but you cannot have mulch within 18 inches of your building. And I'm looking for that type of language, because we have a lot of commercial structures that have the cigarette depository in the mulch bed as you go in the door. And if you miss, we've had some issues.
And that's just asking for trouble. Yep. And there have been a few recent deaths in Massachusetts because of careless disposal, cigarettes in mulch. And I don't know if it was last year or the year before that, a wedding was broken up very quickly at Luciano's because of a lit cigarette in mulch.
Also, the carbon monoxide detectors need to be updated and working. That incident in Smithfield recently is evidence of that.
Yep, absolutely.
Terrible outcome.
5 to 7 years on those carbon monoxide. We're coming up on change your clock, change your battery. And my public announcements are over. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.